we've been having a great time in this segment, going over a lot of things, and I want to welcome you again to the show, Ross. How's everything been going with you?
It's been great, man. Been really good. I'm
Winning
glad to be back.
cases, winning cases, just
That's
tearing it
right.
up out there, right?
Doing the best I can, anyway.
Okay. Well, look, I sent you a bunch of information. I've been getting tons of comments too, tons of comments about this segment because the interaction that we're having and the information that's going over the air when it comes to penal code for people licensed to carry, so on and so forth. Because they're always asking questions, and you always have to say, "Oh, I'm not an attorney. I can't give you that information." Well, we've got a live one here. That's you, who can give us some insight. So I sent you some information, and I'd like to go over the list of the common elements that need to be analyzed before using force, and give us some lawyer insight as to how a court may see these things different from the regular Joe on the street defending himself, a third person, or property. Does that pretty much nail it down? Is it clear what I'm asking?
You just want to go back over real quick what we spoke about last time. So,
Well, the list of common elements, I was hoping it's like, for example, if I'm saying I see a group of people, to me, two is too much.
there's a myriad of things that can come into play if you're talking about going to a jury trial.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to go over.
And yeah, that's what we kind of got on last time, was how big is the person that's coming after you, and what kind of weapon does he have. And I think, perception of threat definitely goes to whether the person has a reasonable belief that force is immediately necessary. So, if you want to bounce some stuff off of me, and I'll bounce some stuff off of you, that'd be good.
That sounds good.
I was thinking, there's a good way to remember everything. We talked about too that there's a presumed reasonable belief in certain situations.
Yes.
And so the legislature has given gun owners and homeowners and property owners a way to perceive a threat, right, that is going to be presumed by law as a threat. And those kinds of threats would be if somebody's coming to burglarize your house, coming to break into your house with force, doing a sexual assault type of situation. I actually came up with a little, I think they call them acronyms, right? Firearms are hot.
Oh, I like this already. Firearms are hot. An acronym?
Yes. Okay. And so I think if you can remember that, it starts with F, force. The other individual will be using force. This would be in the code section 9.31 of the Texas Penal Code and 9.32. But the individuals are going to be using force. They're going to be using unlawful force, which I've put as illegal. They are going to, it says, wanting to remove you or somebody from a habitation, a vehicle, or a place of business. They're going to want to enter a vehicle, a home, or a place of business. And ACE stands for, or if they're doing one of these things, aggravated kidnapping.
Yes, sir.
Okay, or what I put as abduction. And R stands for robbing. If they're committing a robbery, that would fall under the exception to use force. M falls under murder. The S falls for sex. And then R, we talked about briefly last time. Are you at a place where you have a right to be? Do you have a right to be there, and do you have the right attitude?
I like this. This is very good.
So you can't be provoking somebody, and you have to have a right to be where you are. So you have to have the right attitude, and you have to have the right authority to be where you are. And then hot, there was 3 situations that the legislature said. I've already mentioned those. One is the home, a habitation. And O stands for office, but that can be a business place. You can be an employee at your place of work, place of business. The T stands for transportation, because they include vehicles in that. And so, to go back over it briefly, if someone's coming and trying to remove you from your vehicle or from your habitation or from your office place, and they're doing it unlawfully and using force, that gives you the right to use force in turn, and you're going to be presumed by law. The legislature has made those things a perceptive threat, and made it a perceptive threat whenever they're doing a robbery or it's essentially a burglary, really, if you're breaking in to do some kind of felony. Okay, but even if you're breaking into the home with force, in breaking into somebody's habitation, right? We assume that you're going to perceive a threat, even if it could be your kinfolk, because you don't know who it is.
That's almost like a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yes. So I mean, it is a no-brainer, but it's important because you don't want people being treated unjustly in the system many times.
Hey, Ross, I want to take a side note. We're going to go right back to this, but a side note on somebody breaking into your home at night as compared to breaking in during the day. Is there a clarification on that when it comes to someone actually breaking in and you're there during daylight hours as compared to nighttime?
Yes, for property, and yes for when it's not going to meet one of the presumption things. I'm sure that being nighttime makes it the situation that much more intense and worrisome. But the presumptions, right, don't say that it's got to be at night. Okay, you can be presumed to have a reasonable belief if you're at home sleeping in your chair at lunchtime taking a siesta, and somebody just starts busting in your house, and that could be in the middle of the day. And if you thought we didn't really go to the deadly force, but if you thought they were using deadly force or they were going to, and they were breaking in your house, and you thought it was necessary to use that force, you would be presumed to have a reasonable belief.
Okay, let's go back over this again. Tell us why you wrote this acronym, what it is, and then break it down slowly so people can take the notes down and write it down. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll have a podcast like I do with all my shows. You can go to aaronsgunshop.com, go to the radio page, check out the podcast. We're on iTunes and Podbean and all that kind of stuff. So check out the website, and you'll be able, if you missed this, and it's around the 10:20 time mark that Attorney Benton Ross Watson is here and talking about this. So go ahead and tell us again your acronym, what it stands for, why you wrote it up, and let's say each one a little bit slower so that people can take notes.
The acronym is essentially just a short way to remember 9.31 and 9.32 of the Texas Penal Code, because there's a lot to it, and it helps you kind of get a grasp on it if you were in an emergency situation and wanted to try to think about if your actions are going to be lawful spur of the moment. And so you could think firearms are hot. Force, I'll read the code really. The actor's belief that the force was immediately necessary as described by this subsection is presumed to be reasonable if the actor knew or had reason to believe that the person that they used the force against, right, was. And then this is where you would use the acronym: was using force, was acting unlawfully to remove you from...
So the I would be illegal?
Yes, illegal. So...
And the key word is firearms are, and the R is not spelled out, it's the letter R.
Letter R.
And F is force, I is illegal, and now you're on R?
R is remove you from your vehicle, place of business, or work, or home. Your habitation is what the code says. Or entering unlawfully, illegally, and with force, your home, your vehicle, your place of business, or attempting to do so. Okay, and then A is the basically the second half of that section that gives you the presumption when somebody is committing aggravated kidnapping. That you can think of it as a abduction. That may be an easier way to do it, but it's really not the same, because abduction can mean two things, and it can mean aggravated kidnapping, but it can also mean something else, but it may help you. But aggravated kidnapping, trying to take somebody for ransom with a use of a deadly weapon, trying to kidnap a politician, trying to kidnap somebody to hurt them badly, terrorize them. Okay,
let's hold up 1 second. Let's help me clarify something here, because on the aggravated one, I could use deadly force, but we're discussing force here, and we talked about definitions of force and deadly force. How do these bleed together so one can be clear on the force levels?
Okay, so I wish that maybe I had a larger knowledge of case law as far as could you use deadly force every time when it's aggravated kidnapping. I don't know that you could. They can try to use any kind of threat maybe to get you to do something. I don't know that every single time that they do aggravated kidnapping that that you're going to be justified. The second section, 9.32, says that you can use the deadly force to prevent those activities, right? If it adds language in there. If
and that's on Penal Code what?
9.32.
All right. So
imminent commission of
it's happening now.
One of those things. If the person who was doing this abandoned their effort immediately, even though they were maybe still in the course of doing it, could you pull out a gun and shoot them? Right? Is that going to be a reasonable belief?
Well, I see your point. I see your point there. But what I mean is, if somebody's got their hands on them, dragging the person, and for some reason I determine my shot's clean, I'm sorry, I'm doing it. Okay.
Oh, I mean.
But now, if the person sees me coming out, they let go and run away. That's what you were getting at, where that might not be valid because the threat has now passed.
Yeah, I agree with you. It just maybe I don't know about every single case. Is all I'm saying.
Very good. All right, so we're back here on our acronym of firearms are hot, and we're on the letter R, the first R.
Okay. So is robbery. If somebody's committing a robbery, and all robbery is, to give you a quick definition, is just theft by using some kind of threat or some sort of bodily injury. When I come up and hit you and take your money, as opposed to just doing a pickpocket situation.
Okay.
Murder, obviously, you're going to be able to use force in that situation, and then sexual assault. Now, these two sections, I don't say aggravated sexual assault and aggravated robbery because they say sexual assault and robbery, but it actually says those two extra ones as well. And then the other one is to make sure you have a right to be where you are, and you have a right to be what you're right to be doing what you're doing. So the code says you cannot provoke somebody, and we talked about this last time. Don't talk smack, to somebody. Right. Don't get in their face. Don't provoke the situation. Now, I'm not saying every time that were to happen, right, you wouldn't get a self-defense claim, but you're sure not going to get the presumption in this situation. You're not going to be presumed, and therefore you're going to have to prove it. And if you were at fault, it makes you that much more likely to be arrested and the DA to come after you and put you in front of display in front of the entire community.
And we're going to come back to that in a second once we finish this up, because I read before, if you were, what can possibly happen after a shooting. We'll talk about that briefly after.
And I'm sorry. And then the other two, and then make sure that you have a right to be doing what you're doing. It says that as long as you're not committing a criminal act other than a Class C traffic violation, okay? Mm-hmm. And then hot is it within your home? Is it within your office? In your vehicle, transportation. So now, for aggravated kidnapping, it's not going to require you to be in the home or anything, but the other ones do require it, so it's important to keep that in mind. And it's also important, and I didn't even see this, until I started working on this. It's got to be an occupied habitation. So I know it's a no-brainer because you think, well, I'm occupying the space, but like we said, words mean things. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I've seen crazier things happen, and it's possible that, you'd be fighting over an empty space.
Wouldn't you agree the reason why it's so important to know all this and to have clarity on it and understand the loopholes is because a person out there who's carrying a weapon for self-defense, a property, person, family, whatever, and God forbid they have to engage in it, it's not as cut and dry as you think, because when you're going to have to most likely, unless you're no build or something, go to a court of law to defend yourself. And if you're in that court, that means the prosecutor thinks he's got a chance at winning, and a prosecutor doesn't like to lose, right?
Right,
okay?
Exactly.
So they're going to take
lawyers don't like to. We all think we're the best.
Okay, but the bottom line is, lawyers, like Rick said, take sides. And when you're on your side, getting paid by the person taking care of you, you're going to look for every possible way to get them off, and the prosecuting attorney is going to look for every way to get them booked and serving time behind bars. So you've got to be able to understand how it can go either way for you, even if you think you're right. And isn't that a good assumption, a good explanation?
I mean, the I mean, a good example of this is Christopher Grisham's case.
Right.
I don't know if the listeners know, but he was carrying a firearm, what appeared to be legally, in an area that did not prohibit carrying of firearms. And the next thing you know, the situation is out of control, and then they're trying to justify it later on things that you can clearly see had nothing to do with what was going on at the time of the stop. And he ends up winning one case, kind of winning, and then coming back and losing it again. And he just went up on appeal and he lost that. And you wonder how these types of situations happen. I mean,
now, I want to mention this here. On April 22nd, I'm going to be doing a live remote at the Real Gun Show at the Bell County Expo Center. And it's going to be a big show. We are going to have C.J. Grisham at the show. We're going to have Attorney Benton Ross Watson there as well. And we're going to be discussing some things pertaining to that case. It's going to be very interesting for all you open carry enthusiasts and everybody else for that matter. It's a show you don't want to miss, and actually come on out to the show, get to meet everybody, shake hands, talk, ask questions, so on and so forth. So back to what you were saying now, Ross.
well, this is, I mean, I was just agreeing that, yes, I mean, anything can happen in this business. I think that's why I like it's the ultimate competition and it's the ultimate challenge. I think there's no greater glory than to beat somebody head on in a situation, especially when you're being judged. By other people, I always hated judge sports, and I don't know why I got in this profession because it's so mind-racking, because at any given time, the courts can just make up their own rules.
Is it almost like a chess game?
Oh, definitely. From the very moment before you even get to the courts.
Wow. All right, look, here's what we're going to do. Trey, let's take a break here, and we're going to come back with Attorney Benton Ross Watson, and we're going to discuss the short penal code necessity, and we'll see what he has to say about that, and then we'll finish up this segment. So we'll see you on the other side. I like that.
Chief's running just a little bit behind. He's on his way.
Chief?
Yeah, he was on Rogers when he called.
So if you or a loved one has been injured by someone else's negligence, they can help. Call 888-637-6347
what does that mean? After 11?
for help today.
Yeah.
From Capitolino
Well, no, I mean, he's about 20 minutes away. He'll get here about on time.
As hard for your family as you do. Call 800-460-0606 for Capitolino
Ross.
Krebs.
How do you want to go on this one, just so I know where to start?
High Cap Adventures.
The,
If you've decided to carry a handgun for self-defense, you better know what you're doing.
I don't really know what you're going to ask me about. You're not really entitled to a necessity defense if self-defense is an issue.
I read people going, blah, 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 blah. Isn't it the place of law where we would apply common elements? Because it's saying here, reason believes the conduct is really necessary to avoid imminent harm, because what they did was they read that and they said, I reasonably believe I had the immediate necessity to do something based on my perception of threat. No? Not a good stretch?
The counter to the necessity. Well, these are all stem out of necessity, right? I'm sure that necessity was probably, I'm guessing, but it's probably one of the first justifications that we had. Right? When somebody's land was flooding, they brought their bull over to trespass on the neighbor's property
Because it was necessary.
And so the same thing is with self-defense. It's necessary to protect yourself and others.
Okay.
But because the legislature has given you code sections, then the number 3 legislative purpose to exclude the justification claim for the conduct is not otherwise.
I want to explain that because that's legalese there, and people go, huh?
So, but that's what I was trying to find. There's one more good case. I know I saved it. I don't know what happened. But
Hey, Ross, let me make another point to you about when I do this. I try to ask questions in a manner that are simple, so that in this short segment we can broadcast it out and people can understand it. So sometimes it comes across like, what's he asking me here? I'm pulling it out of my ass, trying to get a question. So just put up with me, okay?
all right.
Because I'm thinking, when I read this, I go, what does that mean? So then I got to think, what does that mean? Okay, break it down into a question so that people might be interested too. And I got entertaining radio as well. Pulling it out my ass.
Certified professional and with a complete bar setup, Aaron's can help make your social event one to remember for a long time. Call Aaron's now at 254-482-0557 or email Aaron's at mail@aaronsnightcaps.com. Make Aaron's High Cap Nightcaps your first call and last call when you want a professional bartender for your next social or corporate event. Call 254-482-0557 or go to aaronsnightcaps.com.
Oh, you want to go? You want to do this?
When calamity strikes, will you be ready? Centex Tactical Gear and Temple has your military surplus.
Maybe we can give a quick
equipment,
breakdown of what that
basic
means
duty
and
gear,
just
first aid
explain the
supplies,
process.
bug-out bags,
Because when we come back on, I want to go for about maybe 5 to 7 minutes more, and that's it.
3583. Check them out on the web at centextacticalgear.com.
Can be
Centex Tactical has both new
white
and
wedding.
used clothing and
Good.
equipment to fit your camping, hunting, or prepping needs. Call Centex Tactical and Temple at 254-231-3583 or check them out on the web at centextacticalgear.com.
You got internet here? What is it?
It's KMIL net. It's not password protected. It's just sometimes it won't pick up for some reason. You ready?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Again, it's April 1st, 2017, April Fool's Day. And this is no joke. We've got Attorney Benton Ross Watson here with us, going over our attorney lawyer segment, talking about Penal Code 922, right? Necessity? Yeah, 922 necessity. And we've been going over POT, perception of threat, and what that involves. And we're back now. And Ross, we were talking during the break. Wanted to go over briefly, if you could, what happens after a shooting. I had mentioned you'll probably be arrested, possibility of criminal charges being filed, grand jury appearance, possible trial, possible punishment. You may have civil litigation. Can you just explain that to people in better terms than what I just read?
I think it probably is going to depend on what kind of situation it is too. You never want to be too big of a fish because you don't want to be a reason to get publicity, and you don't want to be too small of a fish that it just allows the prosecutor to get convictions and you really don't mean anything. So it's not a big deal as far as politically speaking.
You want to be a fish that's just right.
And you want to be a fish that has tried to stay away from the sharks. Okay, so you want to try to stay within the bounds of the law. But let's say that a situation happens and you happen not to fall within one of those presumptive areas. Like you said, it's going to be a very factual, intensive situation. You're definitely going to be questioned by the police. I would probably expect them to at least take you downtown and question you if they don't arrest you. And after that occurs, a lot of times what happens is the district attorney doesn't want to file charges on people, but they feel like they have to, and so they'll take it to the grand jury and hope the grand jury no bills it, and then they're off the hook, and everybody's fine. Everybody goes home. But and so a lot of times you could not have done anything wrong, but it's just like the district attorneys did for a lot of the policemen 2 years ago. I think up in the northern states when a lot of these were going on, there was so much backlash, and they didn't have any other choice just to send it to the grand jury and hope that they no-billed it. Now, the prosecutor's allowed to present his case to the grand jury as he or she wants to present it. And
Well, don't the facts come in and then the gathered facts gets in front of the prosecutor? The prosecutor says there's enough here to do something, or it's kind of weird, so we send it to the grand jury to see if it gets billed or no billed, right?
And see, there are more regulations. This process used to be,
Simple.
it is secret. No, it is secret, but there's more regulations now that it's a little bit, you're able to discover a little bit more of what's going on than you used to be. But still, the old saying that a prosecutor indict a ham sandwich is basically true. And if you're on the bad side of, law enforcement or the prosecutor, that's not a good place to be, even though you were justified, because the way that that's presented has a lot to do with whether they no bill or whether they indict. Mm-hmm. And so you could be right, but they may say, well, if he's right, then let a jury find him not guilty. And then you're still going to have to be, they'll issue a warrant. They'll probably arrest you if they haven't already done it. Mm-hmm. You'll have to get you a lawyer. You'll go before the judge. You'll be arraigned on that indictment.
But the answer to this is go into your bedroom, lock the door, put your head under the covers. That's about the only way you can 100% assure yourself of anything. All right. Just kidding. Now, I'll tell you what, we're almost done with this segment, so let's go to necessity, Penal Code 922. And I read that during my other segment, but I'll read it again real fast. Texas Penal Code 9.22, necessity. Conduct is justified if 1, the actor reasonably believes the conduct is immediately necessary to avoid imminent harm. 2, the desirability and urgency of avoiding the harm clearly outweigh, according to ordinary standards of reasonableness, the harm sought to be prevented by the law prescribing the conduct. And 3, a legislative purpose to exclude the justification claim for conduct does not otherwise plainly appear. When I read that to my students, they look and go, blah, 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 blah. Help me out.
Let me just give you an example. If a tornado's coming and you're out in the middle of a field and you've got nowhere to go and there's nothing, you can't hide or anything, but you see a big concrete structure up ahead and you run towards it because that's the only hope you've got, and there's a door, by God, you're going to break down that door. Right? And you're going to do that because it's necessary. And there are no other alternatives, and there's nothing else you can do. The same would be, like I was telling you, this probably goes back, and I'm making stuff up right now, but I'm pretty sure there's a good hypothesis that this kind of defense goes back probably as far as, any defense goes, because like if the pasture's flooding and you need to bring your cows over to the neighbor's property and trespass, then that's just what you got to do.
So bottom line is, if the next door neighbor there wants to say, hey, you're trespassing, and take you to court, the court will say it was a necessity, so they're going to let it go.
Right.
Okay.
And so I would probably say that, self-defense stems out of that a little bit. We have all kinds of Roman codes and biblical support for the right of self-defense as well. But when self-defense is an issue, generally you're not going to get also a defense of necessity unless there's some other kind of issue, that's not solely connected to the self-defense right. But there's an interesting case, and I can't tell the listeners that I'm 100% about this because this case was actually overruled by the Supreme Court, but it was overruled, Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, but on another ground. It had nothing to do with this particular item. And so this court here, it was the person was restricted from carrying a handgun on this place, and so it was an area where he wasn't supposed to go into, and the law of necessity, when he got charged for unlawfully carrying this weapon, right? It was supposedly, there's not a whole lot of facts either about the specific what was really going on. Sometimes courts just don't want to talk about it, and they just want to get it over with and say what their opinion is and not tell us more because they don't want us to know, right? But and make other people figure it out. But there's not a whole lot of facts, but what I deduce from reading it is that it's a place he wasn't supposed to go, but he took it there because there was some sort of fear factor, and he was probably going to need the weapon, and he really honestly felt like there wasn't another alternative if he went to this place. And so even though he was prohibited from taking the weapon there, right, he took it anyway. And sure enough, he got arrested and charged with unlawful carry. Well, he asked, during trial, please let me tell the jury, I thought I had to do this. There was nothing else for me to do. I had no other options. Like, this was my only choice. This was necessary. And the prosecution hadn't given us anything to show what other options I had. And the trial judge was like, sorry, right, not going to do it, right? And it went up on appeal, and the appellate court disagreed. They said they thought the trial court should have given him the right to claim that defense. So
it all depends on who's at the trial, what day it is, and what mood they're in, and if they've had their cup of coffee or not, from Sefco Hilltop.
But I can tell you there's another case, too. There's another case, an unlawful carry situation, and I was trying to find that. That's what I didn't know we were. Maybe I missed something. I didn't know we were going to this issue. I would have found it before, and I may have it next time. But in Texas, there's actually a law that says a police officer can commandeer a citizen and make them help in an emergency type situation. Well, this was a case that involved the same situation, but this officer handed this individual his gun. The police officer handed this private individual his gun. Well, that person wasn't supposed to have the gun, and so like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen the case. I'm going to go find it, though. But I'm telling you, that guy got in trouble because, and I don't know what he did. He may have done something stupid, which is why they ended up charging him anyway. But still, you would think it wasn't for something stupid. It's because he had the weapon. Mm-hmm. And so you ask yourself, how can a police officer commandeer me and then give me his weapon and knowing that this is a place I'm not supposed to have a weapon, right? And then I get in trouble for it.
It was necessary to do it, so that's the argument. It was necessary under the conditions.
But he got in trouble.
But he got in trouble. Well, I'd like to see that case. So
oh yeah.
Let's figure it out for next week. All right, ran a little long. Ross, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Here in Cameron, 105 East Main Street, and people around town know me. If you can't find it,
You must be a star now. They're all asking for your signatures on napkins, right?
I'm still a small fish in a small pond.
You don't want to be a small fish.
Yeah, it's got the big milk cow on the side of it. That's my office, and my number is 254-605-4140. 254-605-4140. Benton at Watson.legal. Benton at Watson.legal.
Fantastic. It's always a pleasure, Ross. I enjoy it very much. You can review this again on our podcast. We'll have a segment for YouTube, probably Monday or Tuesday. You can check it out with all the other ones, and it's great for note-taking materials. All right. We're gonna